As a parent, whether a mother or a father, you'd do anything for your child. You're their safe place, their guardian. You're the one who makes everything all better. But what about when you can't make everything all better? When you can't just put a Band-Aid on it? What about when it goes deeper than that? Today, I'm sharing the story of a woman, of a mother, who knows the scenario all too well, about the times in life when you can't make it all better. That no matter how hard you try, no matter how many times you pray or how hard you cry, the pain won't go away. You can't take away the pain from your child. Now, that woman, I'm lucky enough to get to call my mom. Her name is Teresa, and she was recently featured on a podcast called The Mom's Day Bunker, hosted by Carrie Henson. And their conversation, it's basically just two women, two mothers who know what it's like to have their kids hurting, and yet they can't do anything to help. They can be there for them, but they can't make it all better. The conversation between the two of them, I thought was so beautiful. It was so heartfelt, so real, raw, and emotional, capturing the weight of being a parent when it's not easy. And with next week marking the 22nd year anniversary of the day I became blind, the day that my entire family's world stopped spinning, the moment in time when my mom would hit her knees, begging and pleading God for an answer, asking that question of why. It's that anniversary next week on October 28th that made me realize that I wanted to share this episode here on my podcast. So today I'm dropping an episode from the Mom's Day Bunker podcast hosted by Carrie Henson here onto my podcast for you to listen to. My hope, my prayer is that you hear something today that can help you. If you're a mom, a dad, if there's anybody you take care of in your life that you love, I guarantee you there's going to be something said today that's going to get hit hard, that you're going to relate to. And that's why this podcast is here, is to help you get through the hard stuff. So my friend, this is a really special episode, one that I truly hope you take to heart. So with that said, I introduce you to the Mom's Day Bunker podcast, hosted by Carrie Henson, featuring none other than my mom, Teresa Lowe.
Yeah, I got grit, grace, and inspiration on my mind.
Welcome back to the Mom's Day Bunker. I am Carrie Henson. I'm your host. And in the bunker today, we have a wonderful guest. Her name is Teresa. And Teresa is here to tell us her story and hopefully give some encouragement and validation to some moms out there who are going through similar situations. And she's just lovely. Teresa, how are you today?
I'm good, Carrie. How are you today?
Hey, hanging in there one day at a time. To be honest, I was like, oh, lay it out on the table one day at a time. But really good. I mean, gosh, you go through stuff in life and you still get to eat Chick-fil-A for breakfast, you know? Like, it's not that bad, I guess. So tell us about you. I'm going to get out of the way because I sometimes I feel like I get in everybody's way when they first come in, and I'm just going to hand it over to you and you tell us your story.
Okay. Well, something that people usually figure out, if I go back to before I became a mom, I was young. Actually, I got pregnant when I was 16 and I had my daughter when I was 17. I married her dad and we were married for 13 years. But I realized at that time I was very fortunate. I had my family behind me and also my husband's family. We had a lot of support. So I was very fortunate in that. Fast forward 5 years, I then had my son, Kevin. And Kevin was always like a roll with the flow kid from the beginning. I was fortunate to be a stay-at-home mom for about 10 years from the time I had Tiffany. So I got to do a lot with my kids. Again, I was young. The support system was amazing. So, we made it through, and both of my kids were just normal kids. And then Kevin, though, when he was 3, started having really bad headaches. So they called them cluster migraine headaches. And he would beat his head against the wall because his head hurt so badly. That started it. So he was on medication for 2 years for that. Then when he went to school, we found out that he needed glasses. So Kevin was in glasses from 5. So all these years go by, and Kevin's having all kinds of symptoms, and I'm taking him to the doctor. And then when he was 17, the bomb hit, and I found out that he had a brain tumor, and he was supposed to have surgery and be okay after 2 weeks. It was supposed to be fine. And instead, when he finally woke up from surgery, he was 100% blind. Also, his pituitary was killed, so he had no pituitary function. I remember the night that we found out that he couldn't see, and I remember leaving the room and just dropping to my knees. There was nothing I could do to fix it. So Kevin was in the hospital for quite some time, and then at this point, I had remarried. The doctors were so impressed because the day of his surgery, we had about 32 people we took over the entire waiting room. And it was, my family and his dad's family, and we all just still came together. So when Kevin came out of surgery, I remember the doctors said that they were just going to allow all 32 of us to go back at one time and see him. So we basically just kind of took over that whole area. And it was so awesome of them to allow everybody to just lay eyes on him and know that he was out. And, and of course he was intubated still and all that. So he had no idea, but it allowed everybody to just know he's okay. He's alive. So there was blessings all around, even in the midst of this horrible tragedy to us.
What was his life like before the surgery?
Before the surgery, he used to drive me nuts because he would do everything. He would be into surfing, and we would get him everything to do surfing. And then he would do that for maybe a month or 2. And then it was, okay, I'm done with that. Now I'm going to do golfing. So we would get him everything for that. He would do golfing. He was always into dirt bikes. He got his first dirt bike when he was 3, and it had training wheels on it. So he was big into dirt biking. He also, when he turned 16, he got his big 4-wheel drive pickup truck that was an old truck that he had seen, and he wanted it, and it was his baby, and he loved it. I can look back on his whole life, and I know that God had his hand in it from day one, because all those things that drove me nuts, that he wanted to do this and he wanted to do that, Kevin was able to do so much. And that's why he knows so much about a lot of things, and he was able to do it. And I feel because God knew one day he wouldn't. And so he let him experience all these different things. I also, in my second marriage, we traveled a lot. So Kevin, we took the kids to Alaska, to California. He got to see things. And I'm so thankful that he was able to see a lot of things that I had never seen growing up. And he was able to. But Kevin's always been my happy, just roll with the flow kid. And he still is. And he was through it all. He was. I know he's my kid, but he's pretty amazing. So.
Of course he is. So you go through the surgery and everybody's there, and they're all saying hi to him. When did they tell you that his sight was gone? Was it pretty immediate or did it take him a while? Because I know with brain surgery, just coming from a cancer mom's perspective, they try to, and I don't know if they did this with Kevin, but they do kind of keep them sedated for a while just to make sure that swelling and everything.
Yeah, he actually had patches on his eyes. And that's another thing. We met with a mom and a son that had been through the surgery. One thing she had told Kevin was, if you come out of surgery and you can't see, don't panic because they're going to cover your eyes. So I, to this day, believe that that is why Kevin did not panic when he woke up, because I think back in somewhere in his head, he remembered that. So I was very thankful that she had said that. But I believe it was the next day he woke up, and that night he extubated himself. And then the nurse came in because he kept trying to pull the oxygen thing off of his finger. That was when they used to have the wraps, like a Band-Aid almost. So they had that on him. And I was in the room with them, and the nurse came in and said, Kevin, stop. You have to stop taking that off. See this light? You can't touch this light. This has to stay on you. And Kevin kept saying, what light? What light? And he's going, this light, do you see this? It's a red light. And Kevin kept saying, I don't see any light. Everything's black. He's like, I don't see a light. And still though, we were like not getting it. And the nurse finally kind of looked a little bit, not panicked, I don't want to say, but like, what's going on? And turned the big light on in the room and said, okay, can you see the light? And he said, no, I don't see a light. I see grays and blacks. And then the nurse started checking his eyes and realized that his pupils weren't working, and immediately went and called the doctor. And that's how we knew he couldn't see.
And what were you thinking? Like, what were you feeling and thinking?
At that point, I was kind of like, okay, they need to get in here and figure out what's wrong. And the doctor basically said he would be there the next morning. And I guess they knew that there was nothing. And when they checked him, there was nothing that could be done. So, but I do remember too that I remember one time they had, like, you would have people come in like playing instruments, or, the dog they would bring in to, try to make the kids a little bit happy or whatever. And this lady came in and she was playing a harp, and she was sitting there, and Kevin was just laying there and his eyes were closed and he was listening. And she asked him, do you hear the music? And he said, yes. And she said, well, if you would open your eyes and look at me, you would be able to see it too. And he did it, he thought that he would see her. And I ran out of the room. I was so upset that, for one, that she had said that. But in hindsight, I realized it wasn't her fault. But I kept saying out in the hall, I was just crying and saying, why would she say that? Why would she do that to him? Why, but I remember that they had never had this happen. So it was like nobody knew what to do with it. So they were actually going to take Kevin away from me, and they wanted me to put him in a rehab center, not because of his physical issues, but because he was blind. And they had me go visit a couple of places. And I told, his dad and my husband at the time, I said, they can't take him away from me. Like, this is ridiculous. I'm taking him home.
But what was the purpose of him being taken away? Like, forever, or just to help him learn how to be blind from going from sight to blind? Or like, what was
They basically told me that the reason they ended up allowing me to take him home is because I had such a huge support system. But basically, I looked at it like, had I been necessarily like a single mom, let's say, with no support. What if I didn't have any family? They would have used that and taken him. And because he was blind. Again, in hindsight, I think things have come a long way in the 21 years.
Who is they? Who is they?
It was the hospital and the social workers. Yeah.
What state? What state were you in?
Florida. I was in Orlando. Yeah.
I could feel the heat rising in my face as you are saying this. It is so incredible to me. I don't tell this story very often, but we were told when had cancer to be very careful because those doctors and social workers and CPS and all the things would take from us if we did not cooperate. So when you have a medically fragile child, no matter what the circumstance is, and you take that child to get help from a facility, from people who have all this education and this experience and this wisdom, and you love your child as a mom, you want to help your child, and you don't agree with them, they will then take your child from you. And I did not want to believe that, Teresa, but there was one day, we were about 6 months post chemo, and we had to go in regularly for scans and checkups. And the receptionists came out into the hall. And this is a huge hospital, children's hospital in Texas. I mean, we were like on the 14th floor. I mean, it's huge. And they started yelling at everybody to get in the hallway. And of course, I'm so dumb. I don't know why my brain works like this, but I was like, oh, is there a tornado? Like, we got to get in the hallway? Because I grew up in West Texas where it's kind of like Tornado Alley. Yeah. I was like, oh, there's a tornado. There was not a tornado. There was a dad whose daughter was in a wheelchair, half dead. She was just barely there. You could tell that this child was ready to leave this earth. She was older, probably 12 or 13, and he wanted to take her home. And there were 6 armed guards with their guns ready to draw on this father. And they took that child away from him. And I was so scared and I was so shocked. And I just held on to and I was like, okay, I'm so glad that we're through and may God never let this cancer return because I got to get the Hades out of here. It is crazy. It's crazy. Now, this is just my experience, and I'm sure I'm going to piss a lot of people off by saying this, but it's true. And it is an abomination to motherhood. Okay, I'm done. I'll take my tinfoil hat off now. I just get so passionate about it because I see these parents struggle and their back is up against a wall and it's not fair.
No, it isn't. When they started saying, I was like, what are you talking about? Like, no, I'm taking him home. What? And they made me go to those places and check. And I was like, he is not coming here. But anyway.
That's crazy.
So we did.
And I'm sure there was a huge learning curve to be had once y'all got home. But that should have been up to you, period. And his dad, period.
Yeah. I mean, I can remember the next day after, that night going through that. I can remember being outside the hospital and I was on the phone already calling every agency that I could think of that would be able to help me. I was like in, I don't know, I guess like mom mode, like you've got to figure it out. You've got to, find somebody to help with this. And we are fortunate. We live in Ormond Beach, which is right near Daytona. And so we have a huge blind center actually in Daytona. And Kevin did go there after, like for daily stuff, like, helping him to learn, because Kevin was always very much a visual learner. And so he had to adjust to auditory learning. But Kevin, I was very fortunate. Kevin's extremely smart. He had already done all the things that he needed. He was a junior in high school. And it was the beginning of his junior year, but he had already done all the things that he needed to graduate, all those tests and crazy stuff they make him do. So he had already done all of that, which was like such a plus to his teachers. And then, something I did leave out is growing up, Kevin was always my very organized child. Kevin, he would get up very early every morning. He's always been an early riser. And he would have my entire pantry cleaned up, reorganized. He just always did that. And that was one of the things that the teachers that he had said was such a plus, that's one of the hardest things that they teach people that become blind is trying to be organized. And Kevin already had the plan of how he was going to tell the colors of his shorts and how he was going to, and they were just like, oh, this is awesome.
How do you tell the color of your shorts?
He actually will cut the tags. He cuts his tags in a certain way. So like he wears a lot of those comfy, what do you call them? Athletic shorts or whatever. So the, red, black, gray. So he cuts the tags a certain way, which tells him which ones they are. He does that. Yeah, I know. I was like, oh, great. I would have never thought of that.
I know. I was like, how do you know? Yeah.
But the other thing is after Kevin went blind, we still took him everywhere and did everything with him. And I remember we went on a cruise. Things like this used to bother me, but people asked us, why would you bring him on a cruise? He can't see anything. He can't enjoy the sights. He can't, why would you even bring him? And at the time, I remember I didn't even know how to answer these people. What are you talking about? And people would get mad because I remember we went on a tour and it was of a rainforest. And I told the driver that Kevin and I would of the bus, I said, Kevin and I are just going to kind of hang out right here because he's, slower and, it'll take it away from everybody else. And he's like, heck no. He's like, I'm going to walk with you guys. And he let Kevin do things like feel certain things on the trees and different stuff. It was so awesome. But then we got back to the bus and people were so mean and angry because Kevin got the guide and he was able to touch things and they weren't allowed to touch stuff and all this stuff. And I got on the bus and I stood up and I said, listen, I'm really sorry if you guys are angry and I'm sorry that we took longer. I said, but if any one of you wants to step in my son's shoes, I would be glad for you to do the things he did today.
Good for you, Mama. Good for you.
I was so angry. I was just, I just don't understand people sometimes. But something I do want to tell people moms out there. Kevin had symptoms his entire life. We went through so many doctors and his primary doctor did not piece it all together. And we kept saying, something's wrong. Kevin never went through puberty. He was chubby. He had headaches every day of his life. He was thirsty. I always used to say he drank like no human I've ever known in my life. His vision continually got worse, never could correct to 20/20, even with glasses and stuff. It was just every symptom he could have. And I continued to say, there's something wrong. And the doctors kept telling me, he's just a late bloomer. He eats too much. You just don't see him eating. He's a closet eater. I'm like, no, you don't understand. He doesn't like snacks. He doesn't eat things like that. I want all moms to know, don't always believe the doctors. I did. It was the best pediatrician in our area. I believed him with all my heart. He knew Kevin's dad's family. They were doctors. And so they knew him and doctors. They were orthodontists, but they knew him and they were friends with him. And I just knew that, he's the doctor. He knows what he's doing. And don't always, if you have a gut feeling, don't let them tell you you're being silly. You're not your kid's doing something that you don't know about, check into all that, of course, but keep moving, keep pushing, because had my son's tumor been found earlier, he definitely would not have gone blind, and he probably wouldn't have as many of the medical issues, because Kevin will tell you to this day that if he had a choice of getting his vision back or getting his health back, he will tell you he would take his health any day. Because when people get mad and say mean things about Kevin being so heavy, and he's heavy because he overeats and because he doesn't do anything because he's blind, that's not the truth. The truth is he has medical issues that he can't do things. And the weight is from the pituitary issues. He doesn't overeat. And you have to be the advocate for your kid. You have to be the advocate for yourself and your kid.
100%.
And don't always believe. And if you need second opinions, you go get second opinions and third opinions and whatever it takes for you to know.
There are just other avenues out there. And if you have a child that something's wrong, then I'm with you. Advocate. Go get a second opinion. Get a third opinion. Don't let those doctors bully you. Don't let them bully you. And they are really good at bullying you, aren't they? I mean, and they're not all bad. We have some great ones, but
yeah, they're not. And, the only reason we found out that Kevin had something was my husband's insurance had changed and the pediatrician wasn't on the insurance. So I said to Kevin, I said, you're older now. I said, let's just take you to my family practice doctor and for your, school checkup thing. And that's what we did. And I remember I just said, hey, I said, I just have a question. I said, can you just check, I said, Kevin's never, that I know, have gone through puberty. Like, I said, he's not growing. He's not, can you just check? And so he asked me to leave the room, and he actually came out the door, closed it, and had a look of horror on his face and said, you have got to get to a pediatric endocrinologist immediately. He said, there's something wrong. And I immediately did that. And when I took Kevin's growth chart and everything, I had it sent there, and we went for our first appointment. And the first words that endo doctor said to me was, he pulled out his growth chart and he said, a human doesn't grow like this. And he told me, he said, he did his exam. He listened. We told him every symptom Kevin had ever had, like even if we didn't, because at that time we didn't realize it was all connected. But I was like this. And he said, well, I suspect that he has a brain tumor, a pituitary tumor.
And this tumor was not a cancerous tumor, correct?
Correct. That we were very blessed with that. It sat on where the optic nerves cross. It sat right there, which also it squished the pituitary gland. So it killed it as well. And the blood had actually, for his optic nerves, had actually started going through that tumor. So, but when the tumor was removed, the doctor came out and he had told us that his eyes, that the optic nerves looked good, that he did have to tug quite a bit on one. So there might be a little bit of issues with one eye, but he said the other one looked really good. But it had just taken its toll. But so I know I've jumped like all over the place. So if you have questions.
Oh gosh, Teresa, I think I have so many questions. I have questions because I can hear so much wisdom in your voice. If you don't mind me asking, how old is Kevin now?
Kevin is, oh gosh, let me not get this wrong, 37.
And Tiffany is
40. She will be 43.
So you have been a mom for 43 years.
Yes.
That is 43 years of wisdom. And hard earned, I think, wisdom too.
Very hard earned. And I really quickly just do want to touch on Tiffany. When Tiffany was 12, she was diagnosed with endometriosis. And she was the youngest person that at that time that my OBGYN saw her and found it. Anyway, Tiffany had symptoms, like crazy symptoms of stuff her whole life. She was just diagnosed about, I'm going to say maybe 8 years ago with a mast cell activation disorder. And that is what they now, looking back, they realize that's what was wrong with her the whole time. So Tiffany's body acts like it's allergic to everything. Like she can eat strawberries every single day. And then all of a sudden she'll eat a strawberry and she's gone into anaphylactic shock. It affects her insides more than anything. So like stomach, she has a lot of pain, and it's very debilitating when you goes into effect. But then she can go back 2 hours later and eat a strawberry and it doesn't do that. She's truly not allergic. It's just her body, the cells are fighting against each other. So, not only because we kind of forget about Tiffany. She's been a nurse for 20 years. I mean, she's
the oldest, but she's almost like a middle child, huh?
Yeah. And she gets overlooked, but Tiffany actually she became a nurse. She had just started nursing school when Kevin had his tumor, and she did work he went to Arnold Palmer Hospital in Orlando, and she ended up, that's where she went, and she worked in the ICU for 13 years, the unit that Kevin was in, because she just had a calling. And fortunately, one of the nurses had become a very good friend to us, and he said he would train her. He told them he would take her out of school, and so he did. And she had, the doctors would utilize her for a liaison between the parents because she was so good, because we had been through it. And so she did that. She had a family, their child passed away, and they had another one, and they came to see her and told her they named their new daughter after her because she was their angel. And I mean, so my poor Tiffany kind of gets overshadowed by Kevin. But I remember after it happened, we were sitting there and Tiffany was crying, of course, and said, Kevin, I prayed to God that he would let me be blind and give you your sight back. And he turned his head towards her. And he said, sister, you couldn't handle this.
I had a wonderful conversation with your son a couple of weeks ago, and he has such a great sense of humor.
He does. He's honestly, I had lost a lot of faith in God, and Kevin brought me back to that. Kevin, I finally said, God, if Kevin can't be mad at you or isn't mad at you, how can I be? And Kevin's just, I don't know.
He's a bright light.
He's a gift.
Yeah.
He's a gift. He really is. And so is Tiffany.
Yeah. So she didn't have endometriosis then, I guess, right? Or did she have it?
They do. Well, she had some, but the doctor always, because she had to have surgery about every 2 years for it. And the doctor always would come out and say, I just don't understand, because it's not that bad for the symptoms that she was having. But this was something that was not even a named disease until about 10 years ago. So we would go to hospitals, even in the last 10 years, when we have to go to the hospital with her, because she had to end up taking a year off of work because she couldn't work, because literally we were in the hospitals almost every day. And she was up to taking her EpiPen like 3 times a day. And yeah, so anyway, it was awful. We've almost lost her a few times. So it's, even in that case, again, the doctors, they would tell us she's a drug addict. She's just wanting pain medication. I mean, all kinds of stuff. And again, be the advocate. By then I had kind of learned, and I went out in that hall and I told the head nurse, you need to get me another doctor in here.
Yes, I tell parents that, like, you have the rights to have another doctor. You have rights to have another nurse. And sometimes people just don't vibe. You don't have to be mean about it. You don't have to be unkind, but just say, we need someone else.
That's right. And sometimes just another set of eyes looking at things, they can see something a little different. So again, like in that, just know that, you just be the advocate, you fight, you be that mean mom if that's what you need to be.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to be brave. You have to be brave. I always find myself to be, or I know that I am a very strong-willed person and not afraid to talk and I'm not afraid of confrontation. I don't like it, but I'm not afraid of it. And I'm not really afraid of conflict. I don't like it. But, I just have that big personality. And even with all of that, even with knowing who I am, I was still scared to death to stand up to the doctors and the nurses. I was still scared to death to talk, just to talk to, we've gone through a lot of legal stuff too, like just to be able to stand up in front of a judge or a lawyer and tell my story and advocate for my kids. And like, it's scary, man. Like, it's scary.
And something I've learned, along the way, I grew up in my father was a police officer, family members, I grew up in law enforcement. I have a great respect for law enforcement. However, I also know that law enforcement, they're all human. Same with, I'm a trial clerk. So I deal with judges, attorneys, all that all day long. And again, they're human. And actually, it's the same with doctors. You know what? They're people and they can step off their high horse for a moment and realize they're a person too. And don't be afraid of that. Don't let all those people intimidate you. You just step up and say what you got to say. And they can like it or not like it, but they got to deal with it. And you have to do that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Teresa, gosh, thank you for sharing your story with me today and your wisdom with everybody. I think that the overall theme has just been advocate, advocate, advocate. And I want to ask you a question because, and this is just for my own peace of mind, maybe, or I don't even know, but you've had these two blessings and they've gone through journeys where, they've almost died. I mean, they've kissed death's door and you're the mom and you're saving them. You're doing the best you can to get them the help to save them. And I have also had children. I have 6 children. 3 of them have kissed death's hand and survived. And I find myself sometimes just wondering who's next. And sometimes I find myself thinking, I almost overdo it because I'm so afraid that something's going to, end up happening to them again or cancer's back. Or do you have moments of that too? Or
I do. I always said that the very first pediatric endocrinologist that Kevin had I've always said was the only doctor that ever told me the truth. And he told me that one day Kevin would be 500-600 pounds and that Kevin would probably die young, not necessarily because of, the illness, but because of the side effects. So I've always had, for one, I said, no, he'll never weigh that much. He does not yet, but he is extremely heavy and there's nothing we can do about it. So yeah, that takes a toll on the body. I've always since then had in the back of my head what he said about death. Kevin's lived a lot longer than I ever thought he would, just from that. But I worry some days, and I know this, I don't mean it to sound like some people. A lot of times if my kids have to go, I just want to go with them. And I don't want to really go before them because I'm afraid nobody will take care of them like I do. And that's just a worry, in my head. But I try not to go there.
yes. Yeah, I try not to go there either. And I have the same thoughts often. But we are human and our mind does go there. So how do you get yourself out of that headspace?
Sometimes I feel like I never have really, truly grieved because I lost my son and all the things that could have been. And I gained a new awesome son. But a lot of times I tend to just I have that box and it's up in my closet and I just keep it there. Sometimes Kevin will talk to me and say things and I just try to kind of block it out. I'm a person that blocks out a lot. And because I have to move forward every day. I can't keep it out there in the forefront or I would just sit and cry all day. So I have to be there for my kids. I have to make them happy. I want them, both of my kids, we all three live together still. We're three peas in a pod. We're best friends. I had to come to a realization about 2 years ago now. I wanted to be a grandma more than anything. I wanted to make right things I didn't do right with them. And I finally had to accept that, I'm not going to be a grandma. And stupid as that sounds, that was just important to me. So
That's not stupid, Teresa. That's not stupid at all.
you just have to take the things and make life good. You just have to take what you got. And I do. I have two wonderful kids. I have a wonderful family. I'm still blessed that I have both of my parents. We still are good friends. I mean, the kids' dad's family, we're all still, there's so many blessings to be found. And that's what you have to look at. You have to find the blessings.
The beauty in the ashes. I struggle with that grief, what our life was before and what our life is after. And it's like life has been leapfrogging for the past, 10 years. I mean, we had cancer, then we had Harvey, then my husband's anorexic and he went to rehab, and then COVID, and then was hit by the car, and then I'm going through a terrible divorce. I mean, it's terrible divorce. And I just keep grieving. I was grieving before cancer, and then I started to kind of go, okay, well, we got this new life. It's okay. And then we got hit with Harvey, and I'm like, start grieving Harvey. And I'm like, and I'm grieving all the things we lost. Like, it's just so stupid. They're just things, but things hold memories and they're gone. Like all of their baby blankets were gone, all of their everything gone. And so I had to grieve that. But as soon as I got done grieving, and I'm having kid after kid after kid, I'm having all these babies. And my dad had a medical issue come up during this time too. And then, I'm watching my husband waste away to 115 pounds. And he goes to rehab and he comes back a total monster, like a monster. It's insane to me.
That's
I don't understand how it happened. I thought, okay, he's going to go to rehab. He's going to get better.
Yeah.
But he didn't. He came back a well-fed monster.
I always say, like us, we get hit and hit and hit. I'm blessed my parents are here, but 6 months after Kevin's tumor, my father had a major heart attack. So we dealt with that. Then my mom now, she has achalasia, which her throat, the muscles died in her throat. So my mom can't really eat, and she's had surgeries, and she's wasting away to nothing. And we always laugh and go, just let the hits keep coming. It's constant. My brother was in a bad motorcycle accident 2 years ago. He's finally back to my brother. I mean, it's just been, it's my other brother now, he's waiting there. He's being diagnosed with some type of cancer or something. I mean, it's just...
It is a broken world. It is a broken world.
It is. We just get through. You just get through every day.
You do. You just have to.
And sometimes it's minute to minute.
Yep.
And, but find the blessings. And that's why I have Kevin, because Kevin always finds the blessing for us.
I got grit, grace, and inspiration on my mind.
Hey, awesome, you're still here. And since you were cool enough to listen all the way to the very end of today's episode, I have a special surprise for you. The story you just heard, I turned it into a song. Now, how is this possible for a guy who can't sing nor play an instrument? Well, my friend, it's called Today's Modern Technology. It is amazing. And what I did was I took the essence of the story you just heard and turned it into a full song. And that's what you're just about to hear. Now, if you're curious to know how this works and if I can make a song for you, well, head on over to klomusic.com. That is KLOWE music.com to have your own song created. But until then, I hope you enjoy this song.
I used to be the one who could always make it better. Band-aids and whispered prayers made the world feel safer. But this is something love can't reach, and I don't know how to breathe. I'd take it all if I could. God, I swear I would. When a mother hits her knees, it's not courage that you see. It's a heart that's breaking open, saying, Jesus, please. I can't fix what's hurting them, and it's tearing through my chest. So I lay here on this floor with the only thing I have left. Jesus, please. Jesus, please. Everyone keeps saying, be strong, they need you now. But they don't hear the silence when no one else is around. They don't know the way it feels to know there's a pain I can't control. I would bleed to take their place. God, just look at my face. When a mother hits her knees, even heaven goes quiet to see. Every angel stands in silence, like they know this kind of plea. I don't have the words to say, just a breaking heart that bleeds. So I whisper through the shaking, Jesus, please, Jesus, please. I cry in the shower so they won't hear me break. I bite down on a towel so my tears don't sound like rage. They call me strong, they say I shine, but they never saw this hallway night. I was never trying to be brave, I was just trying not to care. When a mother hits her knees, Jesus doesn't watch and leave. He comes down into the heartbreak, and he sits there next to me. He don't stand above my pain, no, he kneels beside these pleas. And I swear I felt him weeping right here on this cold tile with me. Jesus, please. Jesus, please. Jesus, please. taking me. Jesus, please.